Ladies, gentlemen, and others, welcome back to Boz Comics. Today I wanted to talk to you all about something that has come up uh, at least in one or two of my previous videos in passing. But I wanted to kind of circle back and double down on this as the central focus of the video. And that is, so when comic book fans, really you see this throughout different aspects of nerd culture, right? Different aspects of fandom. But because the two fandoms that I really, dwell in most frequently are comic books and anime/manga. This is where I see it most frequently. When fans of comics are really passionate, right? And I want to clarify, I'm saying passion when I'm talking about passion, right? I'm talking about passionate fans, not abusive fans, okay? Not fans that, lose their shit and send death threats. Although I will point out, it is kind of hilarious how more often than not we hear about death threats more than we see death threats. I that shit always irritates me. Like, I know that there are a lot of really shitty people on the internet who are like keyboard warriors and they like to hide behind their screens, and their anonymity. I know that they're just unwell people out there in general, and I know that that they fucking will send some shitty stuff. I'm not naive, but I do agree with the criticism that some people have brought up over these last few years that, like, oh geez, it's funny, we hear about these death threats, we never see them, but death threats happen, right? And that's shitty. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about people who really care about these properties. And I think that normies and more casual fans, right, have this tendency to go and be dismissive and derisive and talk a lot of shit, right? Like, oh geez, look at these babies getting all bent out of shape. It's just a comic book character. When we're looking at making serious changes to the canonicity of a character, I'm going to use Spider-Man as an example, because Spider-Man is a huge deal to me. I've talked about this. I will continue to talk about this. One thing that will always come up again and again and again on this channel is Boz loves Spider-Man. But there's a point to that. Oh, I'll get to that in a minute. I love Spider-Man. And so I have spoken at length how much I resent the fact that Miles Morales exists. It's not because he's black and Latino. It's not because he is a character of color. It is not because he's, quote, not my Spider-Man. It's not because he's a younger Spider-Man. It's none of those things that you typically see leveled at people that hate on Miles Morales. I think Miles Morales could be an awesome character. I don't even mind him being a spider-themed character. There's plenty of those running around the Marvel Universe. I hate the fact that Miles exists because he is Spider-Man, and that takes away from a character, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, who has meant so much to me and informed so much of my life. I think it's easy to look at the worst aspects of a fan base and tar the entire fan base with the same brush. There's a lot to be said about, the squeakiest wheel gets the grease, whatever, or at least the squeakiest wheel gets the most fucking attention, right? And again, I'm not condoning like shitty abusive behavior online or in meat space or anywhere else. But I think that we do everyone involved a disservice when we hear criticisms coming from fans about big changes, right? Big shifts in how a character is presented. And we just go, oh, look at these babies. They care about these made up fictional characters. Yeah, we do. Because, for example, I care about Spider-Man because Spider-Man his stories, Peter Parker specifically, got me through suicide attempts. Spider-Man and his influence is literally. Everyone likes to point to that image. I actually used it for a thumbnail at one point, right? Everyone likes to point to that image of Spider-Man tapping into his incredible superhuman strength that a lot of writers like to forget that he has. Tell me Spider-Man is street level one more time, I'll fucking fight you. Getting crushed under the rubble, and he reaches into his vast stores of inner strength and just pushes that massive fucking hulking fucking pile of debris off him and goes off to kick ass, right? Everyone knows the image. Even if you don't read comics, they homaged it in Homecoming, which is the only part of Spider-Man Homecoming that didn't suck balls. I draw on that aspect of his character for strength. To this day, as an adult, I'm 31 years old. I don't really mind talking about myself. This is only one of my channels. I'm actually pretty public about myself in other venues. So, yeah, my name is Joseph Boslinski, aka Boz. Oh no, I've doxed myself on the internet. I think my profile picture is still a picture of my face. I have nothing to hide. Even to this day at 31, I still think of Spider-Man sometimes when I feel like giving up, which is often. I have a vast array of mental health issues. I never denied it. I still draw on this character and what he represents. And, when I'm having a bad day, I think about the fact that, Peter Parker never gives up. And I know that that's fucking lame as fuck and sounds corny beyond measure, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I'm sure a lot of people out there have inspirations like that come from fiction. And they would never tell you. Even people that would mock me for being out and proud about how much Spider-Man means to me as a person. One of my this is apropos of nothing, but I just started this friend. I'm not gonna name names, but I have this friend who I recently got like a little bit into comic books. Gave them like a huge stack of stuff. I was like, here, read this, try this, and they read it and they liked it, and I was like, okay, try some of these, and it's like a lot of indie stuff, right? Like Sandman, Killer Be Killed. I got them to read all of Killer Be Killed by Ed Brubaker, which was dope as fuck. And the only superhero thing, I take that back. I gave them two superhero things. I gave them Frank Miller's Daredevil Man Without Fear, because I'm like, okay, you liked Killer Be Killed. Here's this gritty fucking think like a ninja noir crime thriller by Frank Miller. It's barely a superhero book. There's like one page with a costume in it. Here, read this. And I also gave them the first volume of J. Michael Straczynski's Spider-Man run. And I said, please read this. It's amazing. It means so much to me. This is one of my favorite comics of all time. If you ever want to try to get into superheroes, please read this. It is incredible. She held on to it for a few weeks and then she gave it back to me. And I was like, yeah, did you read these? And she was like, nah. And I fucking, well, I outed her gender. I don't care. I'm not going back and I'm not going to edit this. But, she gave it back to me and I just kind of she goes, nah, I didn't get to it. I'm like, okay, whoa, hold on to these. Read it. It's very important to me. Read it. And she never, she never read it. She still has them. She had them long before COVID. It's fine. I'm probably never going to get those back. I'll just have to replace them. But man, that still breaks my heart. I really wish she had read those. I understand if it's not your thing, but it's like, man, that meant a lot to me. I was trying to let you in on a part of who I am. Whatever. That's just a divergence. But we're talking about how much these characters mean to people, right? So these characters can mean a lot to so many people. I'm not the only one. Again, I'm just going to keep using Spider-Man as an easy point of reference. And I'm going to actually, it makes sense to use Spider-Man because I'm going to circle back around to what really inspired this at the end. Spider-Man means so much, not just to me, but to so many others. You know, Stan Lee created Spider-Man. And yes, I know that Steve Ditko was involved as well. Look, Stan's my boy. Rest in peace. I always think of Stan Lee because he was the face. So I'm sorry. I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but I'm always going to go like, yeah, Stan Lee created Spider-Man. He wrote the words. I'm a writer. Like, it's the shit that really sticks with me. So Stan Lee created Spider-Man because he wanted to appeal to young readers, young outcasts, people who felt lonely and felt oppressed and felt scared and couldn't figure out their place in the world. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, sure, we got all these like crazy muscle-bound dudes over here, right, with like no problems, and they're fucking mad bitches, and they can like bench press tanks. But here's like a high school kid who does not have his life figured out and probably never will, who suffers from childhood trauma, who is a hot mess. Nobody appreciates him the way that they should. But you know what? Like, and when he gets power, he fucks up real bad. His entire life is characterized by a trauma. And a massive guilt complex that he probably should have had therapy for years and years and years ago. But here he is. He's a hot mess. Nobody appreciates him. He struggles every day. He's you. But you know what? He's just like you. And just like you, he gets up and he fucking tries anyway. He's always doing his best, and you can too. You're okay. You're awesome. You can't put a fucking price tag on that. You fucking cannot. That has saved so many people, and it's not just me. So when you see these people who take the worst aspects of a passionate subculture and just go like, yeah, fuck the lot of it, throw it all in the trash. Look, you whiny babies, like fucking you. Why do you care that they changed a character? Why do you care that this movie is different? Why do you care that this game is different? Why do you care that they've fucking, quote unquote ruined this thing that you love? I think there are a lot of things that go into that. It's not, I've explained why we care about these properties themselves, but why do we care when these changes are made and put into other more successful media, besides the source material, because comics will forever be a niche. Why do we get all uppity about those changes? Well, I think by and large, it's because, first of all, we're seeing a version of this character, this story that we know, and we're going like, this is an inferior version. Like, I have this over here and I'm comparing it to this here. This is a lesser thing. It may still be appealing, but it is lesser. And then we have this piece where it's like, this is going to be the version that people are going to glom onto. This is going to be the version that people are going to fucking quote chapter and verse. This is the version that people are going to fucking like, put like on posters and put on merchandise. And then, if we use Tom Holland's Spider-Man, for example, on top of all that, so people who wouldn't pay attention to this version that's meant so much and to us and inspired to so many and inspired so much and so many, people aren't going to ever pay attention to that version, but they'll pay attention to this inferior version. And I understand that there's this argument to be made about like, is it really inferior because it's so popular? I'm not going to get into that. I'll probably make another video at some point about popularity versus quality, but people will glom onto this version, and all the people who make decisions about corporate properties will say this is making a shit ton of money, and then everything going forward will be increasingly more informed by this new version, this new like again, we'll use Spider-Man, right? They'll be informed by this Tom Holland version, this watered down inferior version, and then we'll lose a piece of something that means so much to so many. And yeah, it's a minority, but it's our minority, so fuck off. So there's that. There's a fear of what it will do, of the ripples that will come. There's also a certain resentment, especially if you grew up in the 90s like I did, when it comes to comic books and manga and anime. See, the Zoomers have it far easier, man, because people don't make fun of you for like a nerdy shit anymore. When I was coming up, I was here at like the true birth of manga and anime in the West. And I actually feel very fortunate to be a part of that time in history. And comic books, like, fuck, man. Before the movies, like, nobody gave you any respect if you fucking read comic books. I was mocked and ridiculed. I was literally made fun of ad nauseum growing up because I never hid the fact that I liked comic books. I lent a friend a fucking graphic novel at one point, and I was trying so hard to get him. It was Spider-Man. I was trying so hard to get him into things that I cared about, and he fucking, like, he read it, he liked it, but then he, like, fucking, we had to practically do like a drug deal in our elementary school because he was like, man, I don't want to see anyone to see me carrying this fucking Spider-Man comic book. He fucking left it for me in the dean's office like a little bitch because he knew that, like, he was going to get fucking ridiculed for carrying this stupid Spider-Man book. So there's an element too of, like, we were hated on for liking these things, and then these fucking normies come in, they're consuming this inferior version of our product, and they're going, like, then they turn around and they're judging you for getting really upset that these inferior versions of these characters are being made. So we're around the 15-minute mark, 16-minute mark. Fuck. Well, this is what you come to this channel for. So I'm gonna bring it back around. Recently, okay, so Spider-Man for PS4 came out a couple of years back. It's a great game. I loved it. That is an alternate take on the character, but with a couple of exceptions. I did not find it to be an inferior take. I found it to be a really good take on Peter Parker and Spider-Man and what it means, you know, what that character means and what he represents. I thought it was awesome. Couple of things I didn't like, but this isn't, I'll have to do like a review at some point of the Spider-Man PS4 game, but generally I liked the game. One of the cool things is that for once we had a piece of mainstream media that did not portray Peter Parker as a teenager again. He was literally a teenager in the comics for 2 or 3 years, and then he graduated high school and went on to college, and he has not been a child since. Fuck all y'all. But especially with like Tom Holland, it was kind of a, being what he is right now in the MCU, it's kind of a big deal that they would take this character and do an adult version of him. 23, which still kind of annoys me because I'm like 31 now, right? So like a 23-year-old Spider-Man, I'm like, dude, he's like, oh, excuse me, he's like closer to my age, especially if you read the Straczynski run. He feels like a man in his mid to late 20s. So having Peter Parker as like a 23-year-old still kind of made me go, but whatever. 23. He's way more successful at 23 than I ever was. But he's 23, and they got a good model for his character. He looks like he should. It felt good. It did not look like Tom fucking Holland. It looked like this cool fucking, this cool rendition of like, yes, that's exactly what a 23-year-old Peter Parker should look like. He may or may not be the thumbnail of this video in some capacity. So recently they came out, they're doing a re-release of this. They're coming out with like a standalone shorter game, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Although the game does a version of Miles Morales that I don't hate nearly as much. I think he's a better realized character who's not just a retreading of Peter Parker. So that's cool too. So I might actually pick that game up, but they're doing this thing for the new consoles coming out. Like if you buy Spider-Man Miles Morales, you get a remastered version of Spider-Man PS4. Marvel Spider-Man, which you'll get to play on like your PS5 or whatever, which I think is cool. Ostensibly, that's this cool shit. But as part of the remaster, they fucking changed the model for Peter Parker completely. I guess their reasoning was that they wanted to try and because they had access to better technology, better facial technology now as part of next gen, they wanted to go with a model that they could use that was better mapped to voice actor Yuri Lowenthal's facial expressions. so that, Yuri could carry out the full breadth of his performance, So like we can grab a model that looks like our voice actor, so we can get facial capture from the voice actor who's doing the real acting, and then throw it on this dude, and it'll be good. The problem is that the person they got to match with Yuri Lowenthal's voice now, for the supposedly higher fidelity fucking facial expressions, they got somebody who looks pretty much like Tom Holland. He looks like a fucking kid. No, he's not. He's not. I think he's actually like fucking like 26 or something. This new actor, but he looks like a fucking child. And a lot of fans really got annoyed at that. There's been this massive backlash that Insomniac Games have addressed. They're not going to change anything. I'm hoping they will, but they're not going to change anything. They just give like corporate boilerplate bullshit. Like, we see it, we hear you, we understand you care about this character, blah blah fucking blah. But people saw this change in actor as a diminishment, and they were bothered by it because one of the coolest things about this game is like, oh shit, Peter is actually being portrayed as like mature and accomplished in a way that he hasn't been in years. This is fucking awesome. I'm so down with this as a Spider-Man fan. I'm so sick of reading about Spider-Man as a fucking 12-year-old. So, this game, which was incredibly successful, by the way, I'd like to point that out. Massively successful. I'm sounding like Donald Trump now. Fuck my life. Many people tell me the game was incredibly successful. But there was a lot of pushback because people liked this older Spider-Man, and it was being taken away. It was seen as a diminishment. Now, supposedly there were things like death threats and other bullshit involved. And I'm sure there were. I'm not trying to take away from it completely. I'm sure assholes on the internet are a thing, right? There are death threats, and there were just shitty people on Twitter, whatever. And that's what people chose to focus on. At first it was all cool to be like, yeah, fuck this. I don't like this change. I think it looks terrible. I think it takes away from the character. This is an inferior version of the thing that I really liked. Boy, I wish that it weren't so. And it was okay. We could all agree that it was fine to have these opinions. But then we latched onto the worst elements of fandom culture who decided to piss in the pool. And see, pissing in the pool is not really a good analogy because pissing in the pool truly ruins it for everybody. And it shouldn't, is my point. Like just because there are some mouth-breathing Neanderthalic douche canoes who take things too far, that doesn't mean that the fandom doesn't have a right to be passionate. Fuck those people that mistreat others, yes. But don't fucking dismiss everybody who cares about these characters. Jesus Christ, listen to what they have to say. Yeah, they might not be what makes the product the popular powerhouse that it is now, but nobody cares about these fucking characters more than their closest and dearest fans. Like, Jesus, come on. They have something worth saying. You should listen to them more. If you're seeing fan backlash like this, sometimes you really should take stock and go, wow, mayhap I have fucked up. Oh no. But I guess that's my points. Like, don't use the worst aspects of a culture to just tell the collective to fuck off. It's okay for people to care about things. I'm sure that there is something in your life that most people would say is a want, not a need, right? Something that's non-essential, something beyond, your family and your fucking, like your basic necessities, right? Your responsibilities. There's something that you actually care quite a lot about. And if they fucking undermined something about, that something that was part of what made your precious thing precious, you would be like, blah, blah, what the fuck? And then you wouldn't like it when people came to you like, why do you care about this fucking thing? Why don't you shut up, you fucking crybaby? I guess all I'm saying is have a little fucking empathy before you try to throw us all under the bus. Thanks. Okay, that's it. Wow, this was fucking long. This was 25 minutes. Nobody's going to listen to this video until the very end. But I refuse to deviate from this format. So I guess I'm going to just keep trying. The YouTube algorithm is going to hate me. I don't even care. I'm just making these for me at this point. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Anyway, thanks. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.